Located in the city of Saint Denis, only a short metro ride away from central Paris, the Basilica Cathedral of Saint Denis is an amazing site of Gothic-style architecture built between 1140 and 1144. It is also rich in history, as it became the final resting place of some of France's most colorful characters: 42 kings, 32 queens, 63 princes and princesses, and 10 important historical figures. Housing the remains of Saint Denis, patron saint of France, martyred in 250 AD, the site has been visited by pilgrims and tourists alike since the 5th century. This site was originally used as a Gallo-Roman cemetery, and a small church was built around Saint Denis's grave. Then in the 7th century, the Merovingian king Dagobert commissioned a larger church. Saint Denis's bones were then moved in the basilica's crypts, where the tomb can still be seen. Pepin the Short, father of Charlemagne, was crowned king in Saint Denis Basilica in 754, and later on was buried there along with most of the kings and queens of France from the 6th century until Louis XVIII's death in 1824. The Abbey Church was renamed as a cathedral in 1966 and is the seat of the Bishop of Saint Denis. In 1837, lightning struck the spire of the North Tower, 86 meters high, built in 1219, and damaged it severely. 3 years later, the North Tower was once again damaged by a storm, and the spire as well as the upper part of the tower had to be dismantled. Painting of the west facade before the dismantling of the North Tower. In 2013, the mayor announced the future reconstruction of the North Tower. The work is expected to begin in 2015. Detail of one of the handsome door panels. Very little remains of the original sculpture of the North Portal. Most of what is now visible is the result of rather clumsy restoration work in 1839. The tympanum of the portal of the north transept depicts the martyrdom of Saint Denis. Legend relates that he was decapitated on the hill of Montmartre and consequently carried his head to the site of the current church, indicating where he wanted to be buried. The interior, 108 meters long, almost 30 meters high, is of impressive effect, with its soaring columns and 37 windows, each 10 meters high. The new choir, built in 1140-44, was to be suffused with light. To achieve this, masons drew on the several new elements which had been introduced to Romanesque architecture: the pointed arch, the ribbed vault, the ambulatory with radiating chapels, the clustered columns supporting ribs springing in different directions, and the flying buttresses which enabled the insertion of large clerestory windows. The reconstruction of the nave took place early in the 13th century, when the dark Romanesque nave, with its thick walls and small window openings, was rebuilt using the very latest techniques, in what is now known as rayonnant Gothic. This new style reduced the wall area to an absolute minimum. Solid masonry was replaced with vast window openings filled with brilliant stained glass, all destroyed in the Revolution, and interrupted only by the most slender of barred tracery, not only in the clear story but also perhaps for the first time in the normally dark triforium level. The upper facades of the two much enlarged transepts were filled with two spectacular 12-meter wide rose windows. The reliquary of Saint Denis is located behind the main altar. The cathedral was originally built as a shrine for the relics of Saint Denis on the site where he actually died as early as the 5th century. During the Middle Ages, especially in France and Germany, certain saints were credited with special powers of intercession. Saint Denis is shown with his head in his hands. Therefore, he was invoked against diabolic possession, headache, rabies, frenzy, and strife. The martyred saints' reliquaries are in small chapels radiating from the ambulatory walkway around the apse. Chapel of the Virgin and Reliquary of Saint Louis. The reliquary contains a jawbone of Saint Louis, King Louis IX, 1214-1270. He ruled France between 1226 and 1270. When Louis died, his body was boiled in wine and his bones were held in a silver casket. From 1308, the bones were shared among various churches and became very more highly valued following his canonization as Saint Louis at the close of the 13th century. Chapel of Saint Peregrine. Peregrine of Auxerre was martyred around 261. He is honored as the Bishop of Auxerre, a town southeast of Paris, and the builder of its first cathedral. Peregrine angered the governor after the saint urged the populace to abandon pagan idols. The inhabitants had been dedicating a new temple to Jupiter. Dagobert I was the king of Austrasia, of all the Franks, and of Neustria and Burgundy. Dagobert refounded the church as the Abbey of Saint Denis, a Benedictine monastery. He was the first of the Frankish kings to be buried in the royal tombs at Saint Denis Basilica. Following are pictures of some of the beautiful wooden pieces adorning the space. The effigies of Blanche de France and Jean, children of Saint Louis and Marguerite de Provence, are in copper on enamel plaques. Recumbent figures of Henry II and Catherine de' Medici. The tomb of Henry II and Catherine de' Medici, built between 1560 and 1573. The Germain pylon sculptures, particularly the virtues in the corners, are of very high quality. Louis XII, King of France, and his second wife, Anne de Bretagne, are represented dead, naked and flayed, inside the Carrara marble tomb, and alive and praying on the upper part. The tomb of Francis I and Claude. The king and queen are rendered below as nude corpses. They are framed by a great arch, with reliefs depicting the resurrected Christ, angels, and the four evangelists, adorning its vault. Finally, Francis and Claude piously kneel at their prayer stalls, accompanied by three of their deceased children. Memorial to King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette. The praying statues were commissioned by Louis XVIII when the ashes of the king and queen were returned, and were completed circa 1830. The effigies of Charles, Count of Alençon, and his wife Marie of Spain were originally in the Church of Jacobins in Paris and were removed to Saint Denis in 1817. They are carved from marble and date from the second half of the 14th century. The coronation of Marie de' Medici took place in Saint Denis Basilica. The town hall of the city of Saint Denis is located on the same square as the Basilica Cathedral. We have to thank Isabel for insisting that we visit this historic church. I enjoyed my visit immensely and will recommend friends to take the Aqua Metro Line 13 to the suburb of Saint-Denis to see firsthand the amazing burial place of centuries of French kings. The interior of the Basilica Cathedral will take your breath away.